Today I'm talking with Dominika Bula. We talked about personal balance and how to make meetings more inclusive. I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you like today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello with me. I have Dominika. Is that how I should pronounce your name?
Yes, but many people choose to just call me Domi to make it easier.
Okay. So, and what I also want to show a little bit, oops, and now I have a screen that goes black. That's not good. What I also wanted to show is where you are or where both of us are. And I'm in Belgium and you're in Brun. I don't know how, should I say
Bruno,
Bruno or
Bruno,
something? Yeah.
Bruno.
Okay. I have a friend that's called Bruno. Actually, let's move over there. And I'm in Belgium, and it's what is it? Let's say half past 6. What's the time on your side?
5:30.
Past 5. Yeah, sorry. So it's 17:30. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's the same time zone here. Yeah, you see, English languages sometimes like make mistakes on how to say time zones and things like that. So we're in the same time zone, which was what I was expecting, because
Belgium,
that's
I'm very
how.
familiar with through the, FOSDOM. I don't know if you ever attended FOSDOM in Brussels. The
It's many of my friends are going to FOSDEM, and it's been on my radar for years. Unfortunately, I only discovered it after I had children, and then it was almost really hard to do because a lot of it is in the weekend, right?
right. Mhm.
And so yeah, that always falls in the weekend when there is things that I chose to do with my family. It's really hard to
So funny
join
is that funny that you mentioned that, but the one thing that you might not know is that they actually have a program for families. So if
I
you
do know, but my children are at the age that they're no longer interested in these kind of things to join me. So that's
beer
the
tour,
problem. Yeah. So yeah, I might need to discuss again with them. And unfortunately, I should have done that indeed way earlier, because I like to take my children, or
yeah,
I
no, we
used to
spoke at the
take my
conferences
children.
together.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's a little bit, but that's already a little bit about me. Before we jump into the questions, Dominika, what do you want people to know about you?
I don't know, this is always a tough question. There are many things. It depends on the audience too, right? But,
Mhm.
I find it cool to learn more about the people who think alike. So I'm here, and if you kind of find it familiar or find yourself familiar with the topics that I talk about, then I would be happy to connect and keep in touch, because this is how it started with you. If I think more than 4 years ago, right? We have
Mhm.
came across each other. Let's put it this way. Also online, in the midst of the pandemic, through the Scrummaster Summit, right? And I had a session there that you were host of the track, I think, then, right? And you
Yep.
were recording one of my talks there, so that was fascinating. So I'm doing all of this for the community engagement, just to build also a network. So this is what I would like people to know, that I'm out there and I will happily connect.
Mhm. And indeed, yeah, I already forgot that you were part of that. Uh, yeah, that crazy event that we did during the pandemic, I would say, because it was a lot of us, we were still trying to find out how can we create an event online. Vasco did quite a lot of things already online, so it's not that it was completely new, but at the same time, for the audience, it was like, how do we do that? So there was a lot of things. So yeah, that was indeed already quite a while ago. We're recording this in 2025, so April 2025. So I don't know exactly
I
when it
think it
was,
was
but
March 21,
yeah, I was
March or
thinking
April,
very
something like that.
similar. So 4 years ago, or something like that. So that was what I was thinking as well. Um, Time goes fast when we're having fun. That's one way to look at that. Well, let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
So, like as you can find out by the context by now, I'm one of these agile practitioners. And I'm currently working as an agile practitioner in the big organization. But something that people don't know about me is that before I moved into the more agile practitioner focused roles, I worked as a localization manager because I manage both project and the team for one of the biggest social networks that is still out there, and that was for several years. So this was interesting, point in my career. And before that, for a long time, I worked in this customer support roles. So right now, working as agile coach, I can really understand what does it mean solving something for the customer and having customer focus, because I have been on the other end, receiving end, and discussing with the customer end. And at that time, it was hard for me to understand, why don't we just fix some things that will make things easier for everybody? How is that we do not see this, right? So
Mm,
then that led me to the perspective that if we really want to understand these roles and the holistic approach, we should sit in the both seats. And this would be ideal program in every company, that you kind of go on the fellowship to the customer facing role, support role as an engineer, and you have a couple of these discussions just as a part of your career progression.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I've always I started my career as software support, so I was picking up the phone for customers, and I have to say, indeed, that I learned more in the first 2 weeks or in the first 3 weeks than in the 3 years before when I was studying. Because yeah, thinking from a customer point of view was really helpful, and I'm still very glad that I did that. That was an advice that was given to me, and yeah, thinking as a customer made me a much better developer, made me much better in any kind of role, I would say. And could you give some examples how that influenced you?
I think that this influenced me a lot, because I noticed that sometimes some like small improvements that would seemingly do not require a lot of investment can make a big impact. And people naturally do not feel like that when they are thinking about the solution and the go-to-market strategy and the narratives. Like they are starting to reinvent the wheel instead of really looking into what is happening. And even though, you know, when it comes to the history of agile and the evolution of the market, and we say in last 30 years, there were 1,000 books written about this. It's still not something that we'll naturally do, that we will go and talk to the customers and think about what they really want. And also realize who is really the customer of us, who is that target group. We sometimes totally miss that target. So it really opened up my thinking about, we could do things better. And I kind of got to my role that I have right now through exploration of how can we do this better, because I went to the concept of lean, and then I discovered that, we have all word of the certifications around the Scrum and so on, but that was not answering still like what how to do this better. So I gradually transitioned from being like an associate technical project manager with that experience that I had on support around hardware and software to actual agile practitioners who was helping teams accelerate the release cycle from 2 years to 6 months. So this was also totally different perspective. How can we get this value to the customers faster? And that was when I was working in Red Hat. So, that's when we met. We met at that time when I was going through all of these revelations, teams work together. How would they work better if they were smaller? How can they really focus on creating value and so on? But we have recorded that one and we have wrote an article about what that one, so I'm not going to dive into that, but that's
Yeah.
out there too.
We can indeed. I'm not sure if the recording is still online. I'll check with Vasco, and we can put that link there as well. Let's move to that next question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what would have become of you?
So this one is tricky, because I have moved countries several times before I got this role. So I would say that I was looking for a place where I want to be for a
Mm,
long time, kind of incrementally adjusting my approach, checking out how's the life looking at the different continents. Do I want to be close to my home country? Do I want to be far from my home country? What is the distance to my mother that is good for me? And this sort of thinking, you know what I mean? When you are 20 something, you're still exploring. And then I early on realized that there is not just one job. My parents were always like, "Oh my God, you have a job. Why aren't you happy with it? Just stick with it. I have my job for 30 years." And I'm like,
mm,
"But I don't want to live like that. I get bored after 3 years. This is not the environment that I want to be or the organization that I want to support. I feel like there's something else." So I will probably have similar job, if not the agile coach, maybe change management, maybe sort of the program manager, definitely working with the technology. I don't know if I could have a directly a specific human support role, like per customer support or any sort of like a direct support, because that also requires a lot of mental capacity and patience, which
mm,
I feel like I'm getting less on as I'm aging, because I am also getting more assertive in the things that I want. So I would say that this wouldn't be my immediate choice, but it's very hard to say because I'm open to evolving. So I also don't think that this is my last role in my career. I think this would change as environment changes, economy changes. I don't have like that, oh my God, this is my dream company right now. I'm planning the retirement in 17 years.
yeah, it's. I recognize that, and I recognize the remarks of your parents because my parents had very similar kind of things. They're the kind of people that had, yeah, they had one job, or they had, like my father, I think it's two main things where he did, although he did shift at some point to restudy, but he kept that other role as well. So yeah, it's yeah, it's another generation, and for us, we're like, yeah, I still keep telling to my children, I have no idea what I will become, because I can imagine that I will do something else. And typically, and in the beginning of my career, I thought like every 4 or 5 years, I'm changing to something completely else. Okay, agile coach, scrum master, whatever, something along that role, like you say, change manager. That's something I've been doing for quite a while now. But I still see myself moving in other kind of things. So that's so, but was there nothing for, I would say, little Dominika, that when you were young, that you thought, oh, this is what I want to become? And maybe not the 5, 6 year old, because then we all have some kind of strange idea of jobs, but maybe the 15, 16 year old. Was there some dream that you had at that time?
For very small of me, I wanted to be archaeologist. I still remember that. I was very
Wow.
fascinated about that. But sometimes when we're talking about the process improvement and really mapping what it is like for the companies that had some sort of the employees turnover, to really find out what were the agreed ways of working, I would say this is pretty much covering it, right? You kind of have to live in the past, understand the dynamic, understand the tacit knowledge of the culture that is no longer there, but was to understand what the culture is now today. And then as I moved into, I really studied at the university to, go into the direction of the public diplomacy. So this is one more thing that people usually don't know about me. When I finished my master's studies in Poland, I moved to Berlin for the internship at the Institute of the Cultural Diplomacy, and I was really looking into that direction. How can I work for a government sector to help with the public or international relationships, and either domestic. And that was the point of time, this 2000, what year was that, Eve? 2011, when we were really looking into the economy in Europe and thinking youth unemployment is a problem. What is it going to happen with the next generation? So we're hosting I was part of the panel discussions at the Bundestag. How are we going to resolve it? How are we going to address this? But I think that was also a turning point for me, because historically, if you look at what was happening in that year, there was a lot of changes also on the international scene when it comes to conflict in Syria just starting, first attacks in the Aleppo. And I remember that in that summer, I really had the realization that I'm not going to bring the impact that will be satisfactory for me in this sort of the job. Not having enough network and the connection to really make sure that I can be happy with myself at the end of the day with the effort that I have given, let's say, to the international community, right? And these are really complex problems when you look at the politics. And we also have this right now. I don't want to go deeper into this, but I realized that, maybe diplomacy is not the right path for me. Direct diplomacy, right? But we also need it on the daily basis in the interaction in our work. So I use
I
some
would
parts of it.
Yeah, I would say as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, or Agile practitioner, whatever you call it, we do a lot of diplomacy between teams to make sure that people indeed understand each other's point of view and listen to each other. Um, there's so I think politics in the I don't know bigger sense of the word is definitely something that is very useful. So yeah, that is something that at the same time you're not doing and you're doing, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's and that was something that I didn't know. So thank you for sharing this.
And I was actually specifically exploring what is the influence of the soft power when it comes to the culture and behavior, when you actually want to build a stronger relationship, that you don't do it by force, but sometimes people will just do it by the fellowship. If they believe that what is closer to them and their beliefs, or something that they don't have right now, but they are being attracted to. So I was, and that is funny right now, because that many years passed, and with the current economy and the political system, this changes a little bit. One of the examples there I was using at that time was how US did this, how they did the diplomacy using a soft power. And you can
That
only judge for
definitely
yourself how
changed
that
these
worked
days.
out, right? Yeah.
That's yeah, if there is something where yeah, okay. But indeed, let's not completely go into that
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah, yeah. I'm just like telling
Uh,
you that it's like the soft power and the cultural topics of the organization, also how they work, because they also use, like I would say that you can mirror some of these concepts there. It's interesting.
mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree that it's interesting. Um, so that there is yeah yeah I'm just amazed that you did some of these things, so that was something I didn't know, and I definitely see links. I have a now 17-year-old daughter who's thinking about politics a lot, and then okay, I want to yeah, very interested in the European Communion and how that works and everything like that. So I never thought about politics in the way I'm using it in my job until you mentioned these things. So yeah, it's really interesting to see that there still is a link. And when the moment you said it, I immediately saw the link, but I didn't when I was discussing with my daughter on what she's interested in and things like
Welcome to my biases.
well, thank you for making me think in that kind of direction. So really wonderful. Let's move to that next question. What do you consider at this moment your biggest challenge, and why is that a good thing for you? And of course, the biggest challenge that you want to share openly on the internet. Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a lot. You wake up every day, you check up your LinkedIn, and everything is dead. Agile is dead. Lean is dead. And then you start questioning. You have like this sort of I would say, middle career existential crisis. I have been doing this for almost 10 years now. It's the time to evolve. What is next? We are talking a lot about agile sustainability manifesto. How do we make the right choices for planet? How do we advocate as agile practitioners um, for the greater good, right? And there is a lot of responsibility on us as a community. I don't think so that the community is dying, but we definitely need to evolve. And I want to do this with the open mind, how to do this in the right way. I don't want to walk away from this role. I think this role is important, and process improvement has always been there since people are basically
Mhm.
active on this planet. So this is always going to be there, and there will be always need for evolving and improving. So for me, this sentence is that like agile is dead. Maybe the word should not be used or overused anymore, but this is something that I got as a mentoring very early on in my career. What do you
Mm.
do when you show up to the team as a fresh Scrum Master? You never call the things what they are. You never mention the things by the name. You just lead by the example. And that usually works. But I think that we are at the next evolution point. And also, using the AI as a tool at the daily basis also improves a lot of things for us when it comes to the workshop setup, facilitation, digestions of the books and references, and helping team learn. There is a lot, and acceleration really happen, but it's also a lot of uncertainty there, and this is a challenge to deal with that, and just stay grounded and make sure that, hey, I'm doing the right thing, I believe in that thing, moving on.
Mhm. It's yeah, I recognize a lot of what you talk about, the challenge indeed. Um, the world has evolved, is completely different than 10 or 20 years ago. And at the same time, I also think the need is still there for having people that can help teams to work in a better way. And as you said it so nicely, the exact names is not so important, and I might not have I might not even mention the word agile when I'm working with a team, because that there is some backlash against that word. Yeah, in many for many people, and at the same time, when you do work in an agile way, they're so happy because they see value. At least that's the feeling I have. But they still oppose agile for whatever reason. And then I drop that name, and or drop it in the way I'm not using it. And so I recognize a lot of what you're saying. And the second part of that question was, why is that a good thing for you? What's good about this challenge?
It is about constantly evolving your value proposition as a person, right? So what do I have to offer? How do I market this? You don't take things for granted. I noticed that, like, a lot of people also look at becoming an agile practitioner or agile coach as something of, oh, I'm going to break into the tech. This requires low barrier of entry. I will invest that many thousands in the training, then I will learn my job and I will evolve. And that's where I am. But if you look at the opportunities to learn and grow, they're everywhere. You just need to open your eyes, I would say, because there is always something. I remember that first point when I was really stuck. It was very early on. I had these several teams. I understood what the Scrum is. I had some certifications. And then I went to Poland for the conference, um, Agile by example. And we have been sitting there at the speaker dinner. And one guy told me, I also thought when I was at your place that I know what the Scrum is, what the Agile is. But I think that I only really started understanding what is that all about 10 years in now. And it's really like you get to the mastery by doing that, and it doesn't come from just working for one organization. You need to go through many organizations, many team, many setups, many cultural backgrounds to really evolve to the point that you understand that you don't understand, and you probably never understand, and you have to keep learning and growing.
I like that, and it reminds me of something that Alistair Cockburn did. So Alistair Cockburn, one of the people who created or co-created the Agile Manifesto, he has a concept that's called Shuhari.
Yeah.
So or he's talking a lot about that, and he had what is it, a tattoo for him on his body, and I think for a long time it was Shu. And he explained that for him, he still considered himself at Shu level for Agile, and then only 10-15 years after the manifesto was created, he moved that to Ha. I think so. So just to show, like, okay, it takes a while before you get it. I might get the story a little bit wrong. Maybe it was from hard to read. I don't remember it exactly, but it was really that same idea. Like, it's not because I'm one of the founders of this movement that means that I fully grasp everything what is agile. And I do remember hearing him explaining it. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And at the same time, I heard other people who were like, no, 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 that can't be, because if you don't consider yourself an expert, how can I even be an expert? And that's the thing. We're still all discovering it.
I get it that some people can feel like that, but I'm always telling myself, okay, they're expert in their context, and each of us brings their own context there. But this is very nice story that, to put it in the tattoo and really like do a self-reflection. And this is something that helped me in last 2 years, the Agile Alliance and Bob Gallen's work also with all of other contributors, because that work is under the Creative Commons license, right? And I'm talking about Agile Coaching Growth Wheel, that we are often misunderstood in this title. And even if the organization hires for an Agile coach, let's say, like with any sort of the coaching, there needs to be the open mindset for that, and people need to kind of accept, hey, we are going through this process. What does this entitle to? Let's have a coaching conversation. Let's ask some coaching questions, and then there's this level of misunderstanding. Agile coach shows up, they want to coach me. No, and this really helps us, go around this wheel to say that the coaching of Agile coach is just one of the stances. And then we have so many others. We can help with the change management, right? We can support with the facilitation. We can support with the principles, like basically provide the training from Scrum and Kanban. But there are many other points on that wheel. And when then we go to position ourselves, the target is the middle, and this is that most advanced. Like, I know I'm the master of all things, and when I talk to the experienced people, they will never put themselves in the middle. They are always at the edges because they still have all of this to explore. And I think this is also very good, like a metaphor of this target, that this is a journey. Your life is a journey. And the middle of the target, maybe you will never achieve, but you have to kind of live intentionally and inspect which are the areas that are there and where can I improve. And And the target for me is also just one metaphor, because this target could be something else for you, for Eve or for Dominika. It doesn't have to be that specific
Mhm.
agile coaching growth wheel. This is something that we set it up for our industry. I feel like to help other understand how can we really bring the value, and there are many more topics there, and it's actually really complex if you really look into that. But yeah,
I really like that way of looking. Indeed, that the real experts don't call themselves experts and are at the thing. The hard part is sometimes when we need, yeah, have an interview with a client. They sometimes expect us to prove that we're the most experts, and like, yeah, I think this is a concept I got from Esther Derby. It's like, no, I can prove, or I want to prove that I'm good at helping you finding what you need to find, but I'm not the expert at what you need at that part, because you know your context much better than I do, and I'm really good at helping people in multiple kind of contexts, probably not even all, and finding what is the best way to get that these things. So really wonderful ways of looking at that challenge. Thank you for doing it and exploring that. It's really interesting to
this
hear
happened,
you.
also by doing, because last year or so I was
Mm,
invited to the local town hall to explain kind of what the agile coach does. And I was like, how do I explain this to people? And to make it easier for me, they also did this in the Pechakucha style. So I had 7 minutes or so and really like rapid movement of the slides to go through the concept. And I went there and I basically encourage people that they build that will for themselves and they never give up on growing and exploring. And this way, there will be never a point in their life that they are surprised because they don't know what next, because they have that plan B already on flight, and that will help them. I think overall be less anxious, and I use it also that I use that for self-reflection tool for myself. Like where do I have a gap? What do I think I need? When I was very small, I thought that to be successful, I need a specific things, but now these are not that things.
mm, I like that. I like
Yeah, I
that.
will tell you one more thing that, because we were going into my past and my university. So at the end of the university, I basically pull out all of the jobs from the job portal that look interesting to me. I lay them together and I was like, what do they have in common? What is that I'm missing there that I need to learn? And at the end of the day, one common thing that all of them had that I need to master was the foreign language skill, that I need to speak English.
Mm.
And this is a starting point, and all of the other things could be learned on the job, because university could not teach you that. Could the university teach you what you do right now?
I love that question. I think many of well, especially if I look what I do now, agile didn't exist at the moment that I was studying. So yeah, that if
I had the role of the scrum master on the floor. That I remember. I was like, scrum master, what is that? I remember this very vividly.
mhm. So that's indeed one of these things that, yeah, how do you find that? What is um I really like that way of looking at into things. Um, I want to move to that next question, because with here also in that conversation, I do remember the time that we spoke on the other interview. There is a lot of passion. There is a lot of drive. Do you know what drives you? Do you know where that passion is coming from?
Hmm. I was like, like I'm the oldest child, right? And I have two more siblings. And at the moment when was starting a first grade, my youngest sister was born. So it was always about faking or making it, right? Because when you start the first grade, you kind of like sometimes parents guide you. I took that responsibility of guiding myself. So my father is still reminding me a story that I didn't want him to be walked to the school. He was
Oh.
thinking that I'm ashamed of him, but that wasn't the thing. I just wanted to prove that I can do it myself, right? So then I had the
Mhm.
moments like that in my life that I would do it myself. But at the end, as you grow older and you start having family, you recognize. that there is actually power in community, and it's easier to make it in within the community. And I had this revelation when my child was born that I need the people who do similar thing to understand how this works. So, I created a map of all of the playgrounds in the area and started actively trying to find other mothers and understanding what is that they do, by the trial and error. And the same happens when it comes to being agile practitioner. I have one context working in my company, and sometimes I don't feel good with what is happening. I doubt myself. There are cases that I don't feel like that I'm bringing value of what I'm offering to the team is even aligned with my values anymore, my personal values. And then what happens and what happened to me is there are different people who are doing the same jobs. How are they doing this? And this is basically, in short, how we met, because I started going to the online meetups, in person meetups, and meeting other people being in the seemingly similar role and trying to understand how they do this, what motivates them, and what is my personal style and where I want to go with it, right? So then there were communities, women in agile community, women in Kanban community, but also like different ones, and then open source communities too, because I learn a lot from the projects that offer agile open source tools like a Kanban board like Taiga to really understand, how can you create a community events by the people who are not employees of the companies and not incentivized to work in the specific hours and still build something together and understand how can we collaborate as a team. So that was a big learning curve for me. So to answer the question in the short, at the end, and I think we do this for a long time as a humanity again, we grow through the communities. And it's not only about taking, but on some point you also realize that it's time to start giving back. So then you try to think, hey, how much time from my personal time I can give to build this thing, because you are also thinking to some level like, what is my legacy in all of this? How can I support other people? And I think that you also do this to some extent, right? You are building the community around the who is agile and bring people together, have conversation, they learn about each other, and the network grows. I have a similar motivation.
Hmm.
But I
But
also, no, yeah, please go.
no, no, but I love what you explaining about this motivation you currently have. But I don't want to pass on that first part that you say that even as a young child you already had some passion and some drive to do it on your own. And there is and I think there's both value the fact that you as a young child said, okay, I want to go alone by school, shows also yeah, you had an idea and you had the energy to do this. And of course I agree community brings so much more. um, but for me a lot of the community is also about passionate people and people that have some drive, and some they find it completely in the community and inspires them. But I hear that you already had that as a very young child.
But I was probably
uh,
not born with this 100%, but this also came from like a kind of family, which is also some sort of the community, right?
mm,
I assume that I was doing all of this because I was feeling safe to do it. And there was nobody telling me, be careful not to do it. Just like do
mm.
it, go and learn. And these are the things that are important too. That some things you just need to live through and then decide if this is working for you or not.
I
So
like that way of looking at that, and indeed, it might come from the family. It sometimes it's hard to know where we originally picked that up, because if you have that already at a very young age, it's kind of hard to see, for you now to see, okay, where was that coming from at that early age. Of course, that is sometimes hard to see. Um, Still important, I think, for people to realize that, or for yourself to realize that, hey, it's not something that yeah, it didn't come out of the blue. It's something that was already there. That passion was already there in you when you were young. So that's it's very nice to see that. And somehow, even though your father didn't understand it, I also feel that it was not uh, discouraged. I mean, okay, they might see like, hey, this is a very passionate girl that we have here, and they might realize.
I don't know if I'll be so open-minded with my own child. There's a go to school on your own, and I'm like, oh my god, what's going to happen now? Would they ever ended up there? It's just like,
I think that the world has changed a lot since we grew up, because I think we did a lot more things on our own. These days, somehow, um, we watch our children much more. At the same time, the online world might be even much more dangerous and strange. And I see a lot. Yeah, it's very hard to control that or to see what's happening there. And it sometimes is scary as a
yeah, yeah,
father as
you're
well.
right.
I would say as a
We
parent.
are closest, we are afraid what is outside, but we already have danger inside the house, and that we don't always understand this fully. Yeah, but this is also another topic.
Hmm.
But I was always thinking, evaluating options and even like a job interviews or interactions with people at work, like if I wouldn't do this, what is the worst thing that happened? Or if I do this, what is actually the worst thing that happens? And your conclusion is usually is like, I will learn something new, either about myself or other people, and then I can choose if I want to work in the environment like that or not, right? There's like always different opportunities. It's not, I noticed that, many people are afraid of change, and and then the question is like, what is actually the worst that is going to happen to if you change that job, um, or what is dependent on this? And then we have the conversations. And then the funny thing is that, and I learned this through this woman in agile mentoring program, what ladies that I collaborate often looked into, the most terrifying element in all of the process of kind of evolving and getting a new job and getting what I want is having that interview with the person that actually doesn't know you at all, that first interview, and presenting our,
Mm.
and then getting negative feedback from them. But if you really think in the large scale of things, they know nothing about you. You are most likely not going ever again see this person in your life. So this is fascinating for me.
And as much as I like to do interviews, both to apply for jobs and also interviewing people that I might be having on my team, um, I might think, oh, I understand, and yeah, the statistics just show that we have in just a couple of, and it doesn't matter how many interviews we have, we never really understand if that person would fit our team, yes or no. Yeah, we the statistics shows that we're really bad at that. And even knowing that statistics, I still think when I do an interview, yeah, this is a good person, or this person won't fit. And it's so hard to, yeah, to for myself to realize that no, the statistics show that I'm not good and probably not better than any other person in doing this. Yeah, it's really hard to see that. But like you say, we it's just a moment in time. Even if we do it good, it's just that person at that moment. This person might have an extremely good day or an extremely bad day, and based on that we make decisions. And that really is, yeah, is not always up to par with the rest of, yeah,
Yeah, the
how that
one
person
thing is
works.
that when people ask me, hey, you changed the job several times and you're successful, like, how do you do this? And I'm like, if you go to that interview, answer yourself, would I like to work with myself after this session, right? Because at the end of the day, that's how I understand this. The people test you for the specific skill, ask you questions, but they have to answer, do I want to work with that person? Would they fit to this team? And that's how I always made my decisions. Is this someplace in a group of people based on this behavior? It's a very small sample that I am comfortable with. Because if this is not, the answer is not, then it's probably not all the way through.
Mhm. I like that. I like that. That's again really wonderful ways of looking and
I think we went
again,
everywhere. All stages
yeah,
of life and all stages of, you know.
and that's how I like these kind of conversations, because that shows us again a very deep insight in who you are and how you're thinking, and at the same time we learn a lot about ourselves and about agile way of working. I want to move to that next question, which is what is your biggest achievement? And when I've noticed when I ask this question, basically this is your moment to brag and to be really proud. Is that easy for you, Dominika, to brag about things that you achieved in life?
You know, so I went through all of these things like I'm incredible, and we need to really have to have a say and be loud and own it, right? So I understand the importance of it, but at the end of the day, the thing that I'm a proudest of so far is that first, I graduated university because I thought I would never do it. You know, the processes are usually repetitive, I would say not so inspirational. And once you go through all of the classes and everything, I was literally looking at people and thinking, oh my God. And I get it why some people will just get a job and not finish their bachelor or master degree and not go further in the education, because this takes really a lot of energy for proving that you can follow the process basically. And I kind of look at this when somebody's coming to me with a diploma and they're not necessarily a medical doctor. I can learn from that that they can really well follow the specific process, right? But then the other thing was like, how with all of this and all of this competition, all of these graduates, how am I ever going to job interview and be successful if we have such a big unemployment rates at that time, that many years ago, right? Because we were hit by the economic crisis. And then the next stage was like, I got a job, I think I love it, but I want to have a family. How do I combine this? So then again, another learning point, you know, how do I have a happy family and how do I have a work and life balance and how do I still have this job to the contribution level I was used to before? Because you see people come collaborate, and this is something you mentioned at the beginning. Hey, I discovered that conference after I had kids, and I was like, oh my God, I root for you, I hear you, I cannot go to the conference I want anymore either, and I really have to do this thing. Do I go to the meetup or do I actually spend a time with my family? And I want to do both. And then you have to really decide what is more important for you and also how do you grow personally. And I'm not saying that you have it easier as a man, because in my relationship, this setup is equal. My partner has the same challenges. He's like, I really want to go to that conference. How do we make this work? Can we make this work? You know? And then this is the achievement, to actually navigate through all of that. And this is my personal opinion, right? That this is an achievement. And have a family and have all of this working and actually come back to work sometimes after maternity leave. Because I'm observing a friends of mine and they're like, I cannot do this. I need 3 more years, 5 more years, 10 more years. Then she comes back to her position, but we talk about all of this living intentionally, growing, learning. There was no time for that. And then my overall life satisfaction is decreasing because I wanted to play multiple roles and I couldn't, right?
Mm.
So then there is that thing. So I would say that for now, I wouldn't say that I have an ideal balance. I'm still working this out, but I'm glad that it's possible, you know?
And that is, I think, perfect example of something that is really great to achieve, because it's, I think all of us were struggling with that and finding, and like you say, that the I don't think the ideal balance doesn't exist, because that it might be different, but navigating that balance or integrating these multiple parts of our life. I like to use more integrating than balancing, but finding a way. And indeed, going to conferences like ALE and other things like that, where you can bring your children, is actually part of, for me, a balance. I did bring my children in the very first editions of ALE. Now they're like, okay, the moment that conference is taking place is at the moment that my children have exams, in if they have
Mhm.
exams at university, so if they have to repass exams, so that's not a possibility. But otherwise, we that would have been a real nice way to say, okay, we combine a little bit of these things. This is why I indeed like to bring my children to these things. And it's also a reason why I do Who's Agile now, recording from home, because I can talk with my friends from all around the world. And yes, after this conversation is over, I can go back to my family, and I'm not traveling for multiple days to just go and talk with people. It takes, like we discussed in the pre-talk, it takes a lot of energy for me to edit and do this stuff, but I can do it from home, which is, yeah, another way of balancing and finding things. And for everybody, like you say, it's completely different. And um, I dare to say that indeed for men it's a little bit more easier, or a lot more easier than for a lot of women, because the way our society works, what is expected, like if school calls, they typically call first the mother before they call the father. It's some of these multiple things where all society thinks a lot more of doing it, and it's really hard to even balance that into a couple. I would add to these kind of things. So having such an achievement where you say, Look, like at this moment, it kind of works for me," I think it's a big achievement. Many people might, like you say, some of your friends might be struggling, and I think we're all struggling at one way or another. But if you're for yourself, like, hey, at this moment that works, that's a really big achievement. So I really think that's a nice thing to, yeah, a nice place to be. So
I
maybe
didn't
you
want to
want to.
jinx it, so where do I knock it? Is there a wood that is unpainted? I'm kidding, but yeah, I hear that you're here.
I want to add this as well, because I think
So that's like that. I feel like after Oscar speech, very good. Thank you very much. If I accept that trophy or whatever, right? But then at the end of the day, there's also a question. We're doing something, but at what cost? Because if not family, then you're also looking at your personal health, and sometimes it's also like I don't need to go there because I think you had the discussions about this too. But I sit that many hours and I pour my heart into it, and then is my body happy with my choice? Probably not, right? So this is going in so many levels that yeah,
yeah, well, I'm usually working at home on a walking desk, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I
do a lot
like
of
to do. Yeah,
I do a lot of miles, a lot of kilometers every day, and yeah, there is a reason for that, because otherwise I don't have enough time to do walking. I have colleagues that yeah, I just had this small discussion with a colleague that I asked for what's the right moment to have a meeting, what's the best way for you, and this person was saying, well, I'm running a lot of times during the midday break, so there I might need a little more time, so please don't schedule something with me. I'm like, yeah, really great that you find a way to balance and to have movement or healthy things for you, and everybody needs to look what works best for me or him, and for her. So really wonderful that examples on how you give, because that balancing, it's a lot. I mean, I think Stephen Covey um, talked about sharpening the saw as one of the multiple roles inside, and he said, like, okay, people really need that. One of the tricks I learned from him is, like, give the different kind of roles you have in your agenda, put it into a different color, and then look at your agenda of the week, of the month, and try to see, is that balance of these colors like the balance I want it to be. It doesn't mean that every role has to have the same number of time, but are you happy with that balance? And if you say that your partnership is important, but you never have scheduled time with your partner, you never do that, okay, then there might be a balance. And of course, I might not want to put television time or personal conversations with my partner in my agenda. But if I know that I might not do that, then maybe I should put it into my agenda to make sure that I can, yeah, I have that time if it's otherwise hard.
This is
So,
like all interconnected, and I think that in the very roundabout way we discussed this and made it very, like, I would say, visible or audible, that this is, a lot of the system thinking. It's just not optimizing one thing and then hoping that this will work. I often get this feedback that, Dominika, why you are all over the place, right? And I'm like, because it's important to understand what is this really looking like. Optimizing, focusing just on one thing would most likely not give us the result that we are looking for, because we do not see all of the dependencies. We most likely just look at the peak of the iceberg. So I would like to have a conversation with everybody, right? Similarly to the way we have a conversation right now. And I see like this also reflecting in how we live our lives, right? So
yeah,
very, very similar if you really look at this deeper.
exactly. And looking at that big picture is really, really important in many of these things. I want to move to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
Personal agility tip is this, that you actually control your VIP, you control your work in progress, because the more you get, then actually this is starting to be a problem. And I think that Jim Benson wrote this book about the personal Kanban, and this was a very big eye opening, that many times we preach all of these theories and we even practice them, but when you really close at how people implement them in their personal lives, they are not always being successful there. So there is that, right? Really figure it out, what is the most important investment of your personal time, and go for it. And this would depend on the person. Some people want to have impact. Some people have more or less the social responsibility, right? They want to be involved in the communities. Some people want to be promoted. Some people want to be relocated. There is a lot of out there, but think about this, what you want to do, but also look back into the past and see what is your average performance. And I think everybody can actually say it. And there is also a flow of averages, because we have a peak of our performance and sometimes we have lows, sometimes we have unpredictable things happening in our lives. But if we really reflect on that, I think we can easily say, that's where I am at. And then be realistic with yourself. Is this possible? That's my tip.
But I really like that. That
And then
it's
one more thing, if this is happening in the corporate environment, be very clear about it, that you achieve this and this is how you plan this and this is how you got to it. So stick to it and make it. That's the now the comes the part that we discussed at the very beginning of our conversation about visualizing. Make sure that your impact is visible, right? So then it's easier to go to the next steps with your personal career or your personal practice, that you just go ahead and make a systemic, I would say, investment steps into what you want to do next.
I really like that you talk about making it visible, especially for your career things. Is there is somehow people think, I know a lot of people that think like, oh, but if I do the right things, people will notice. Well, no, it's not that easy. Um, and we all know people who are way too good at bragging and staying making large stuff out of things that are maybe not the things to be, or exaggerating. Um, but I see much more problems in people doing the opposite and not being too proud enough about it. And I had to learn that myself, and I'm probably still learning that myself. Um, but yeah, if I won't, if I'm don't dare to be proud of some of the achievements, even if they're small, why would other people care about that? It's something that is really important. That that more. Yeah, I need that first to be proud of that, and then other people can be proud of that as well.
Yeah, I think that also comes from the bias that sometimes you think, what I'm doing these things, everybody sees them. But let's be honest, most of the people do not have that much mental capacity to really have a close look at who you are as a person.
Mm,
This is in your head usually that they are all looking because people are busy with their life, with their careers. Usually, when they really want to look up somebody who is who, right? What we do, we Google their name, then we look at the tab of what pop out there, and then we make kind of a decision: is this is what we want to think about that person, and then we think about what the positioning does there, and how did we get to this result. So you might have very interesting. I'm actually interested. What is going to pop up if I just type your name? If I had no idea who you are, your YouTube channel and your webpage, and yeah, and then on the first thing I get to your LinkedIn and I find you. So yeah,
mm.
you're pretty well positioned. Congratulations.
um, it's interesting. Yeah, I have a nephew that has the exact same name as me. I need to blame my parents for that because he was born before me, and so I. It's one of the things when I started to become independent to really think like, okay, if people look for me, they need to find me and not my nephew. I made the mistake, and that was even more clear when I made the mistake when I actually worked at his company at some point, which where yeah, strange thing happened because people confused our email addresses and things like that. So that made me very much aware that if people want to look for me, that they should be able to find me. So I was more aware of these kind of things. Um, you said something earlier that I thought, yeah, I don't remember anymore. There was something else. Maybe it'll pop up later. Um, but indeed, yeah, when you said about people don't notice it, that made me think about something I heard when I don't know, probably was 15, 16. Like, yeah, people when you go out dancing and people are worried, what will people think about how I'm dancing? And a phrase I once heard is like, people don't worry about how they don't look at you dancing. They're too much worried about how they're dancing. And so that's a little bit, people don't watch others as much as they think about how they think about others are
Yes,
watching.
Nico, I agree.
So yeah, that really helps to really say like, you know what, if I'm dancing, I just only care about myself. I do the movements that I feel comfortable with, and I don't worry about other things because people typically don't think about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and again, that tip brought us in all kind of directions. I want to move to the next question. What have you learned about remote working? And we already talked a little bit about the pandemic. Was that the moment that you first started doing remote working, or did you do remote working before?
No, it wasn't. I have done remote working when working as a localization project manager. So I work with 80 vendors globally. So they were localizing that user interface in the around the sun model. So we are talking about all
Wait,
of the
wait, because
languages
not everybody might understand. I think I know what it means, but what is for you the round the sun principle?
that we basically have a handover, and the people are expected to support whatever deliverable that is there 24 per 7. So to me, I had a colleague who was handing over from Tokyo, and I was handing back to California at the end of my day. But at the same time, the actual process of work was done all over the globe. and they had the specific cutoff when they were bringing all of this together, and I was responsible for bringing this together. So you can only imagine, that this was, I would say, very intense role, and then we really try to make it work for everybody and figure it out at the support model. So I had this as a teaser, right? And then I really started working as an agile practitioner with one Scrum team that was located in 5 different countries, and I was only one here like in the Czech Republic. So one and the team was working, on the cryptography, and this is very hard to get a good specialist around in one location. So you kind of need to go and source your talent at the root, not move it. So in order to kind of find a diverse team, you kind of need to be open to hire globally. And so we had a person in Australia, people in Brazil, in US, in Spain, in Finland, and in India. And after moving from the support jobs, I kind of figured out that this is how this company works. Like that's how they work, and this is normal. So I didn't think much when I realized that, this is not normal actually. And usually people are trying to make a hiring decision to have everybody collocated. But by sheer accidents of the types of the roles I had in the past, I see you, Blurry. Can you see me well?
I see you. I still see you. Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Then I just took this for granted that this is how the business is done. So that was kind of interesting, right? And then all of the world moved to Zoom, trying to figure it out how to live their lives during the pandemic. But I have had this for 3 years prior to that, so for me this wasn't a big change.
And
We were always
so,
thinking
what
about
have you learned about that? And did that help you, for example, in the pandemic?
definitely that, if it's possible with the bandwidth, because not all of the colleagues usually have this opportunity, because we work with the people who actually did not have a stable source of energy, being based in Africa, being based in different countries. They relied on the power generators to generate enough energy to actually make all of the system run to actually be able to work. And they were usually at this time when I was working in the at the localization project, we had the lightweight solution that will take less capacity and bandwidth from you, that you could still participate from the remote location and really make this inclusive. I don't know if all of the businesses globally are run like that. Because even for us to have this conversation, I would say it's a luxury. We are based in Europe. We might have some technical issues, but overall this is pretty stable. But there are still people that want to have work, have a training to do this, but they don't have this kind of tools and the accessibility that is needed to do this. And there is a lot of discussions about the democratizing tech, but for me, and by sheer coincidence, I understand this, the remote work was more of kind of like, this is how the people in the IT industry work. And then I learned that people actually want to hear from me, how did we make this work? And I think that we even had this discussion in the contribution to your book, how to make this work and how to make the meetings inclusive. And it's okay to have this camera on, and it's great if we can see each other. But there will be cases when, because of the personal diversity or setup, people cannot afford this, and that's okay too. And then there's this element that not all of the discussions need to be meetings. And I noticed that people in many organizations, they have this tendency, oh, we need to have a meeting around this, and then you sit on this meeting and you have all kinds of existential thoughts like, why did we do this to ourselves? We could just write this down. Or we could write the document and collaborate around the document in the comments, and then agree on the levels of agreement or disagreement and move on and have a deadline for this, instead of having a quarter quarterly what is it series of calls. This is like, I'm also looking at this from the perspective of the cost. How much time did we spend on this? So there are many aspects to that, and I feel like this could be a session on its own. So I just park it here. If
Yeah, and the book you're talking about, you said casually, my book indeed. When I started, what is it, 98 tips for hybrid and remote working, where you participated in and wrote a piece that I will link in the show notes as well. Um, it's something that I don't put enough energy in it anymore, unfortunately, because of this podcast. But indeed, I'm not yet at 89 tips, but I should from time to time send some more because I get a lot of great tips here on the podcast, and I should do much more with that. But it's something, like you say, that is very important. Looking at the preference for individual preferences, that really helps people, because yeah, I as much as I like cameras on, there might be people that for who it's not working, and actually might be less participant in meetings if they have to put on the cameras all the time, and that gives a negative result as well. And indeed, I've noticed myself that with some people, I collaborate much better on Slack, for example, just having a conversation, typing out, than having a video call. With others, that might be mail, or that might be WhatsApp or whatever. So there's different kind of things that might yeah, might be different in way of working. So thanks for reminding us
And
of
I
that.
agree with that, there are different collaboration modes that would serve different groups. And here's the anecdote, like, so one of my first team that I was sent to by the Scrum Master, they actually didn't meet in person, like on the calls. And I couldn't figure it out where they meet, but they were obviously meeting somewhere. So after digging into the topic, I figured that they're actually on IRC. And then we are going back into the timeline, right, to the root.
Wow.
How is this working, and where are the the notes and all of the summaries of everything that has to happen, because it's obviously not in Jira, it is in the editor directly. So then that really gives you a very big range of experiences that you could not fully understand if this is your first role and first organization. I'll just stop here. Let's move on to
But that's a little bit what we also see, and I love that you mentioned ERC, because IRC, because it's for yeah, something indeed from the past. Maybe even more from the past is that within some companies, the most important discussions are happening at the coffee machine, and if you're remote, well, you miss out, because my coffee machine is different than yours, and so then I might have a great conversation at my coffee machine with my partner or with one of my children, but probably nobody in the company is aware of this, and that won't help. Even if it's a very big, great idea, yeah, I need to still share it. And if I use a personal tool, and indeed I know companies where officially everything's happening in Slack, and then you hear later on that the founder is actually using WhatsApp with a couple of his friends that he knows around the company, and yeah, some of the very important discussions are taken there, but a lot of people are not in there. So that's another risk that we have if people don't know about the communication styles or preferences of other people. Really wonderful way of thinking, and yeah, well, really thinking about that. It's important to think about these kind of things. Let's move to that next question. What's a book that you have read that you want to bring out? And I think you have a couple of books that you wanted to bring in here. So let's.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. What is the good recommendation here, but also for sharing. So, usually and this is again trying to kind of like generalize this, but when somebody is like going on the path of becoming agile practitioner, and this is also how people are seeing us externally, you're like, oh my god, this person is going to teach us about the Scrum, or we don't want to do Scrum. I had the teams when I was collaborating with in kind of enterprise setup. That means there was me and let's say 17 teams, and they're like, we don't want to talk to you, we don't want to do Scrum. And I'm like, it's not about the Scrum, right? It's not only about Scrum, and you should understand that there are different ways of doing things based on the context and what is needed for a team. And and there are many factors to actually consider. And I noticed that I have been there at the beginning too. Like the best, the most important thing you can know is just be great Scrum Master, but that's not the case. And I also had the people from HR coming to me like, how can we do Scrum? And I started questioning that, is this a best way of you to live your life? Kind of like, right? And then what I wanted to recommend here as an answer is actually a Kanban pocket guide. And you have there Pratik Singh and Colleen Johnson and Daniel Vacanti actually talking about
And
what
this is the book that you're talking about.
yes, and what is that uh, definition of workflow? Where Kanban would work? Who is the Kanban for? The most important questions of all of the questions we can ask when improving the process. Where is the start of your workflow and where is the end? Do you understand this? How many starting and ending points of the workflow do you have? Do you control work in progress there somehow? And then element that it's always surprising for people when you directly ask them, what are the elements of value, right? What do you consider as value? And these are really eye-opening questions that I would just recommend you to look through this, because it's never like Scrum or Kanban. This can work together. So this is just something to broaden up the understanding, and it takes 1 hour to read. And it could be really a good exercise for a person who wants to go beyond Scrum and have better discussions with the teams that they are supporting with. And then once you lay the ground on that, you can go to the more advanced topics, answering the question when it will be done, because this is actually that question that we often get from the leadership as agile practitioners. This is great, you are supporting team, but when are we going to get all of these things that we already solved? So
And
there's
that's
right.
that other
Yes,
book from
yes.
Daniel Vacanti.
And this digs in deeper into the, how do we learn about um, probabilistic forecasting over deterministic forecasting, and how does this look like for our system that we work within. And this can work for any system, right? For any group of people that works in the process, also on the personal level. So this is like fascinating when you really look into the options of the forecasting, and potentially using Monte Carlo to kind of have a discussions within your team of the things that they are already doing. You're not selling anything new to them. You're just taking the data as it is, assuming that they have any tracking system. And I'm not talking about the Jira. There is always something that team is using that we consider as a starting point, and then just have a discussion. Hey, it took us 3 weeks to resolve that one thing, or 125 days. Did we really meant it to be that long, or what happened there? And then it's a different dynamic than agile practitioner coming to the team and saying, hey, here is the agile manifesto, here is the scrum guide, read this and come back on Monday, we're doing it. So I seen both, and I think that this is just a better way of doing things, but just starting to have the same vocabulary with the team and understanding what is that all about, that we would really focus on optimizing of the optimizing of the flow of the value that we are potentially generating, and everybody really understanding what is the value. Because I have been working with the teams when I was asking them, who are we doing this for and what is the value here? No idea. We were told to do this, we never questioned this, we are not so happy with our daily life, but we keep going. And then we again talk about something that I think you heard is very important for me: living intentionally. I think you don't have that working like that. So then, and then I wanted to recommend one more book that I have been reading too. And this book is called Continuous Discovery Habits by Teresa Torres. And this is
And
kind
this is
of
the book.
bringing it together. Yes, it's bringing it together to what it happens before this team actually this development team starts developing things, right? How did they get to the elements that are actually prioritized problems to solve, and then they're actually starting to build this? How did they get to that point? And there is a lot of like, let's just focus on development. But my understanding of all this problem space is that we do not focus only on development as agile coaches. We focus on L2N. We focus on the full software development lifecycle. And this is usually really starting from that feedback from customer as I started my career, working on that phone and trying to understand how can we solve it for the customer, all the way back to the engineering and trying to figure it out how to make this better, then release and get the feedback again. Not forgetting that somewhere in the middle, we also have all of the operations and marketing that is trying to go to market and have also a coherent story about what is that we are selling. So all of these elements are important. And that book talks about is how to bring this together. That it is very important aspect in which we should involve everybody, including engineering, and we should think not about how can I do this from the product perspective, but how can we do this as a team? Means product, engineering, and design together to get all of the perspectives in. And then there is a situation that I observe sometimes in the organizations, that our structure doesn't allow this like that. We work in the silos, different organizations are set somewhere different, right? Set different. They're managed by the different people with the different motivation. And natural internal boundaries do not help you work like that. And then I found in this book very good tip that is up to you to figure it out. Who are these counterparts in this process for you? So you build that power trio. You as product manager or as engineer or as a designer, you find your people that you feel comfortable collaborating with and getting feedback from to move things forward. And saying that I have been not given this in my organization and this is not possible is not a good enough answer for me. And I'll be always challenging this and trying to get people a little bit out of the comfort zone. And I think that these books help all of these three books help with this narrative, nudging the people a little bit out of the comfort zone to try to see if we can see the things from a different perspective.
I really like that. It's really, yeah, that's that trio. It's interesting because it reminds me of, and I can't come up with the exact name, but George Dinwiddie talked about another trio. Come on.
It's a
Sad that
product trio.
no,
No,
it's another trio, but it's basically developer, product owner, or product person, and then more a tester.
investor.
And so that is a very similar kind of thing. And come on, it's yeah, really
You
sad
add
that
it
I
to the
can't come up.
links. You
The
find the
Three
book and you
Amigos, the
add
Three
it to
Amigos. That's what he
yeah.
was talking about. The Three Amigos, as a concept. I'll definitely add the link to the show notes. Um, and yeah, for me, it's something that I really think if we can add three people, and I do agree, the designer is something that is becoming more and more important. So it might be three or four people, But having multiple people think from different kind of stances to the same problem is so valuable, and not as which I sometimes see as kind of different silos that then hope to work to the other side, but really collaborating and doing the work together. It's so important. Yeah, that is something that I think is very valuable. And like you say, these kind of books help with that, looking from a different kind of way. How do we bring value for our customers? And indeed, um, I do remember when I first worked or coached with the first team that I would say I was a kind of agile coach or scrum master. I used a lot of things that I've learned from design. I'm no designer at all, but I've learned things from personas and other things. And for me, that was so logical to combine that. And it was only years later that I learned that, hey, these are two different kind of communities and they were struggling to collaborate together. I think in 2015 or something like that, people started to talk about how can we combine these communities. It was like, yeah, for me it's very logical. They both want the same. We want very fast feedback. We want to do a lot of things that feel the same, and they have different kind of solutions, but that doesn't mean that their intentions were not the same. And so yeah, for me it was very logical.
But I believe that
And
this community suffers from similar problem like agile community suffers.
oh yeah, definitely.
By the design and the naming conventions, there's also a bias that, hey, this is not for me, this is for a designer. Something
I
like that.
agree.
I got this as a feedback about the Lean UX, right? We cannot possibly do this as a meetup because it's just for the designers. And I'm like, this is why we need this meetup. That's just made me sure that we need to talk about this a little bit more, right?
Yeah, I agree there. It's that's exactly why we need communities to combine people with different kind of feelings. And this is also why for me I like so much who's agile, that different people invite different kind of people to look at different kind of things. And this is also why I'm happy that you're here as because that it's not just pure the let's say the people from America or from different, no, that we look at, for example, in Europe, we look at other kind of countries and bring in people with different kind of experiences. That's
Well, thank you
indeed,
for having me.
well, I'm really happy that and you were on my list for a very long time, and somehow
You
I
know, and I was kidding in that email when you sent me, and I was like, I thought you never asked.
but it's yeah, for me it was like you were on that list, but normally this is people who are mostly invited by other people, and I do take the liberty from time to time to invite other people that I think, oh, okay, that it takes too long before they're invited, so let's bring them on. And so that I was happy to do that. Let's move to for me, especially in conversations like this that move in all kind of directions, one of the most interesting question: what's a question do you think that I should also ask you, and what is the answer?
This one is tough. I think that indirectly, explicitly, or explicitly, we went through all of it right now. So I think that, yeah. What's next? I think for me, the next thing is that, like really trying to figure it out how to make all of this work with the changes that are happening also in the global economy, because I would say that none of the job can be certain right now, and this is definitely going to evolve. So I hope we meet again on another project and in a similar setup, and I'm really curious to see what is going to be looking like, because this will be probably much different. Imagine that with this context that we have, we would have this conversation that we had. We could see that conversation 4 years ago when we first met. This would be really interesting to have. Yeah.
Well, the what I've noticed, so this podcast started originally as as a series on my blog where I sent out the questions by email, and I received the answers by email, and then I published it. And some of the people that have been interviewed on the video had this answered this particular question also by email 10 years ago or in 2010. And indeed, a lot of the answers are completely different. The questions they ask themselves are different. And even on some of the other questions, what drives you or what's your biggest achievement, things have moved for some people. For some other people, it stays the same. But that's indeed very interesting to relook at some of these questions every 5 to 10 years. And yeah, at this moment, my list of inviting new people is still growing. So of course, because I keep asking for new names, but that's why I probably won't do re-interview in the same format. But you never know. Uh,
But you have
in
amazing
others,
knowledge database there. This is amazing to have all of this. You could be
yeah, I don't create a database, or I don't have I don't know, an AI system about conversations and these kind of things. I'm not sure that I should have it, but it's indeed interesting to sometimes watch it. I on purposely don't look back at the answers for the people before I talk to them, but after that, when I'm editing, for example, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I did have this person also in on the blog, so let's look there what that person answered, and then I sometimes compare, and it's interesting to see how people are moving. Or sometimes I think Jutta Eckstein referred to it herself, and she said, well, this is still the same as it was then. And so yeah, there is sometimes people
yeah,
remembering these kind of things.
yeah,
um, so, but that's indeed, like you say, it's not an easy question to answer, and the the question, "What's next?" or what is like what we discussed in the beginning, is agile dead? What's the future of agile? What's next for me? What's next for agile? Is, I think, the most used answer for this question in this series. Not when it was a blog, and the blog that went in all kind of directions, but for this series, the video series, the future, the next thing, on a personal or on a community level, is really the theme that comes back. It really feels that many people are thinking about, okay, what's going on with my life, what's going on with the community. It's yeah, there's a lot of movement, and at the same time it scares people, and at the same time it's like, oh, this is exciting, because yeah, there is a lot thing going on.
yeah.
So that's why I also am really happy with this question, and I keep adding it. Let's move to already that last question. What's who do you think I should ask next? And you had two names that I think you thought about.
Yeah, so I was thinking, but then I was thinking, okay, you've probably invited all of my names, but there are so many names that
Mhm.
I was recommending um I was recommending, now I don't have it on the top of my head.
So
The
I can
people
show
who
the two names that you
I know
sent
who I
me.
recommended, but
Okay, you wanted to invent other people.
I wanted to recommend the Alison from Women in Agile, right? And then also Jim
Jim
Benson
Benson.
for the personal Kanban. But I
Indeed,
don't know.
and like you
Yeah.
said, I did invite, and I had already a conversation with
Yeah.
Jim, um, and I also, oops, and where did it go? I indeed also had a conversation just recently with Alison, but that's actually was triggered by your invitation.
Okay.
This is very interesting because somehow at the moment that you invited Alison, I said, "Oh, this is a good idea." And on the day that you proposed her, I sent an email, and by coincidence, I had that conversation very quickly, and it went out live last week. So on the 4th of April. We're talking on the 9th of April. So a lot earlier than your conversation will go live now, but that's also a little bit.
That's cool too. I'm happy you
Yeah.
get to talk. I think that
Well,
too, I
but
kind
it
of
might
think
be
alike.
interesting for me.
Yeah.
Why would you? But so for both of them, why did you want to invite them? Because I think it's also nice for them to hear why people want to invite them.
I met Jim for the first time last year in June on ACE in Krakow, and he was one of the speakers there. And I really started talking to him after the speakers dinner, and I had like, wow, like he really carved out his own niche and goes for it with the Mundus Institute and really actively try to help the people with the right mindset. Because we're also talking about like how do I make it work? That sometimes the fact that the people want to pay you money, if you have like a consulting company, doesn't mean that they will get it, right? It's the same like with the lifestyle coach. You can give me all of the money you want to, but you are probably not going to have the result if you don't have the right mindset. And we talk about challenges around this, right? How do we overcome this? How do we make it better? What are the challenges? How do we collaborate? Who do we like to collaborate with? Because there are also some preferences, right? And that was for one of them. And for Alison, we just work together on the Women in Agile Mentoring program. And if you're listening to that and you're a woman, please go and check it out, womeninagile.org, because they have many ways of getting you support you might need. And if you are a man, please become an ally of this organization, because there are also many ways you can get involved. But it's amazing to make sure that we have a more diversity in the enterprise work setup. And and the coaching and the mentoring program was focusing mostly on making sure that the people who get to these agile roles get promoted, and they do not stay just a scrum master, but they are becoming the agile leaders within their organizations. And this is very important for scaling this concept and making sure that we are also improving incrementally in our careers and in our lives. So there was a lot of this. Alison, I invited you. And Alison is like, I'm not sure about this because what I do is not agile. And I said, that's right, you don't call it agile, but it's very much into the spirit of coaching managers to become better for the people and the teams. So indirectly, they can also release a better product, because they will put in that value into the whatever they are working on. Should there be a guidance? Should you have this right mentor? Should you have that one manager that you really remember until the rest of your life? And I have one of those, and I don't know if you talked to her already, but her name is Jen Krieger, and she works for GitHub as a VP of operations. So maybe this is also a tip for you. This was a person that taught me that whatever you do and you don't understand, write about this, publish the articles, explore what does it mean value stream mapping, explore what is uncomfortable for people when they come to the conference talks and ask questions, document this, make the case studies of that. When you feel ready, go and find yourself a community that you can contribute to. I would not promote a person who is not giving back. And that was said to me very early in my career as agile practitioner. And I carried this with me until today. Sometimes what would Jen do? So this is really important. We do not speak to each other on the daily basis, but I still kind of reflect on this, what was given to me back in the past.
I really like that. I really like that. So
Yeah.
I haven't talked to her before. So yeah, really good. Yeah, good
Yeah, so
to have her on this as well. Um, I'm not sure if I invited already because I'm pretty sure that she's on the list. Yeah, but it might be okay. But we'll discover. We'll talk later how to invite Jennifer. um, because it's one of the people that I really would love indeed to have here. A real wonderful power woman, um, indeed. So that's a really great addition to add to this. So Dominika, I really want to thank you for your time because it's been a wonderful time
Thank you for your time too, Yves. And
so
all of the other times with the other people, you do a great job. Keep doing it.
thank you. If people want to reach out to you, what it would be a good way to reach out to you?
Connect on LinkedIn and I'll follow back if they're interested in having discussions. Obviously, I
This
don't do
should
any
be
consulting,
the
so I'm off the market for that. But in terms of the engagement of the community or participations on some panel discussions or some talks, I'm always open for those. So
yeah, I think that's the nice thing is that yeah, we're, uh, for me at this point, LinkedIn it's one of the few, and it's sometimes also a strange community or a strange social media, but it's one place where we can get connected and learn a little bit on how people can interact and indeed come to conferences or ask for mentoring. Like you said, I will definitely add also the Women in Agile page and the podcast in the show notes because I think it's a wonderful program with many different kind of things. The podcast, the mentoring, the yeah, a lot of the things that
the seeding of the local communities, the new
Mhm.
voices. So there's a lot, really a lot to get engaged with. And we also have women in Agile Europe. That is a local seeding community of the branch that we have in US, and they have all of their own group organizing it around. So there's like really a lot of amazing, passionate people that just want to support other people. But then
Mhm.
also go to your local school and universities and try to teach them.
Oh yeah,
I'm not kidding
definitely.
because I'm actually doing this tomorrow. Like we have a design thinking class with the students where we are going to explore. I'm learning these things right now, but how is that I'm going to use this next, and what is that I need to get a job? And then we
Mhm.
kind of like go through the personas and kind of ideate what would be the timeline, what are the what are the things that we need to get us on the other side. So this is very interesting to see with the people. We're very young people who are just like starting or in the second year of the information studies to kind of see what this that is interesting for them. Where do they want to go? How do they want to have their startups done and so on? It's very inspiring.
Yeah, but I really like that. Like you say, go to the schools and talk to them because these are the people from the future or for the future, and they don't always realize that people when they start off. For me, I keep telling them about the power of the junior. Ask questions from your very day on, because you will, of course, when you start on your first day, you will not know everything. So you need to ask questions, but you will quickly realize that you might ask questions that seniors no longer dare to ask because they should already know. Um, and especially about if at school you learn some new technologies then or new methodologies or whatever, you bring some real value for the companies you're coming in. Okay, you're still a junior, so you don't know everything, but good, yeah, it still is, and that's why I think it's important to do the things like you do. Go to, go to the schools. I try to at least once a year talk at the local or a less local school and bring things back from the community, from the real world. I think that brings a lot of value there. So again, I really want to thank you for your
Thank
time.
you too.
It's been a wonderful moment. It's been a wonderful way to end my working day. Let's put it like that. And yeah, really thank you.
Yes, and see you soon.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of Agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other Agilists.